This is a demonstration of DataGuard modes for RAC. This demonstration will also work for non-RAC if you have a single instance, but since I have a RAC database, I can show you with two instances. So normally when you set up a DataGuard standby, the default protection mode is maximum performance, but Oracle also offers you two other protection modes: maximum protection and maximum availability. The advantage with maximum performance is the performance over on your primary database, your production database, is minimal. Maximum protection is the highest protection mode. It guarantees your redo is applied to the standby. Your standby is in sync with your primary. But if your standby goes down, your primary will also go down. Maximum availability is somewhere in between. It tries to achieve maximum protection mode, tries to guarantee your redo is received and applied at the standby. But if the standby goes down or the standby is not applying the redo, it will behave as if it is in maximum performance mode. So here in my case, I'll just show you the two instances I have. I have two instances of a RAC database. So this query is at the database level, so it doesn't matter which instance you run it from, it's always the same. So I've configured my DataGuard protection mode to maximum availability, which means it tries to work like maximum protection mode but can drop down to maximum performance mode if necessary, if the standby is down or there is a lag between the primary and the standby. And this is my standby, so you can see here standby is receiving and applying redo logs, online redo logs, because I'll just show you this parameter. So I've set my log archive desk2 to sync a form at the standby. So I want guarantee that whatever is written to the standby is acknowledged back to the primary. So I'll just show you, for example, just do a few archive log switches here. And you can see as soon as you issue a archive log switch, it is going to come to the standby and get applied as the standby. So the standby is in sync with the primary and it has received the next set of redos. Earlier was 184 from thread 2, right? Uh, and 183, 192 from thread 1 and 183 from thread 2. So now it is already at 194 from thread 1 and 185 from thread 2. So it is in sync with production. So no matter how many times I force archive log switches, they will keep getting received and applied at the standby. But doesn't matter, even if I'm not forcing archive log switch, it is continuously receiving and applying the redo logs, the redo basically the standby, because I have multiple standby logs. You need to have standby logs created to match your primary redo logs. So if your primary database is 2 threads, 1 and 2, you must have 2 threads of standby logs, and you must have as many log files as you have at the primary, preferably plus one more at the standby. So here if I assume I have 3 redo logs at the primary at each instance, I have 3 at the standby, plus I have to have at least one more standby log. In this case, actually it would be better to have at least 2 more standby logs because I have 2 instances. So I need to have multiple standby logs if I want to be able to run maximum availability and sync and affirm. Okay, so this is how it's working currently. It's receiving redo and applying it, or if I do a log switch, it's receiving the archive log and also archiving it here. Okay. What if the standby goes down now? In maximum protection mode, if the standby goes down, the primary will also go down. So if you are running maximum protection mode, you should have at least two standbys, of which at least one is in sync with the primary, so that the primary does not go down. But if you have only one standby, you cannot run with maximum protection mode, because your standby might be shut down for maintenance or whatever, or your network link might go down, in which case your primary will also go down. So with only one standby database, you have maximum performance or maximum availability mode. Maximum availability mode guarantees your redo is received and applied at the standby. If the standby is running apply, maximum availability guarantees that the standby is received at the redo if the standby is up but not running the apply. Now if I look at my production mode after the standby has been shut down, right, so now it says my protection mode is desired protection mode is maximize availability, that is maximum availability, but currently the level I am achieving is resynchronization. That means my standby is not in sync with the primary. But because I'm not running maximum protection mode, the primary has not gone down. So if I were to generate some more archive logs, so I generate a few more archive logs at each primary instance. It doesn't matter, the protection mode and protection level don't change. Okay. So I have a lot more archive logs generated. Remember, if you look at this, the last ones we had was thread 1 195 and thread 2 186. So I've generated a few more archive logs, but my protection mode and protection level remain the same, meaning that the standby is not in sync with production, but production has not gone, the primary has not gone down. Now what happens if I start up the standby but do not start redo apply? So now my startup, once it's mounted, it will be able to receive the archive logs and generate them as archive logs here. So if I were to look at the okay, so once I did a startup of the standby, or let me just view the scroll back a bit. If you remember, this 9:59 is the current time. I had just shut down the database at around 9:56 here. Okay, let me just see, go back, and then when I started up around 9:50, after 9:58, I did a startup mount. Okay, so whatever archive logs were generated at the primary, all these archive log commands were received and archived at the standby. So they've been received, they've been archived, but they have not been applied. So just scroll back a bit here. So this is a physical standby database, it's mounted, and it has received the archive logs from thread 1, thread 2. Okay, and okay, now it says the primary is running in maximum availability mode. Okay, so the primary expects everything to be synced to the standby, and the standby control file is consistent with the primary. That means standby has all the entries for the archive logs and any subsequent archive logs generated from the primary. So if I were to query the protection mode and protection level here, it is still in, it is no longer in resynchronization mode, because now what it is understood is that the standby has received the archive logs. It has started receiving redo from the primary. So that means it knows that any redo that I sent, whether it is an archive log or whether it is an online redo log, is being received at the standby. So it is guaranteed it is written at the standby, because I have always set up sync affirm. So now the protection level achieved is maximum availability, although it has not started applying the redo. It is only in the archive logs at the standby. So if I were to start applying redo, just was looking at something else for a while. Using current log file is no longer mandatory in the clause, but I just use it out of habit. And even disconnect from session is no longer mandatory. You just have to specify all database recover manage standby database. These two clauses are not required, but out of habit from previous versions I still use them. So once I issue this command, you will see no change at the primary, but you would be using your normal monitoring scripts to see what archive logs have been received and applied at your standby. You already would have some scripts which monitor the apply of archive logs at the standby, so you could use them. I'm not going to go into those scripts, but let's show you. For example, see, the archive logs that had been received at the standby have all been applied, whether it is thread 1 or thread 2, thread 1, thread 2, and so on. And now it is already caught up to thread 1 206 and thread 2 187. So you can see here 206 is the current online log. It has not been archived. 206 is current, and that's what it's saying. Whatever redo is being applied in 206 at the primary is also being applied. This is the message it shows. It is also being applied at the standby. Similarly, for thread 2 it is 197. So rather than maximum performance, which is the default when you set up standby, I would prefer that we use maximum availability mode. It tries to achieve maximum protection level of protection, but it can continue running your primary even when your standby goes down. So you cannot run maximum protection unless you have multiple standbys to be guaranteed that at least one standby is in sync with primary. If you only have one single standby, preferably look at using maximum availability mode rather than maximum performance mode, which is the default. The requirement for maximum availability is, of course, you have to be able to you have to have very low latency between your primary and your standby, and you should want to use sync and affirm, so that all your redo that is sent from the primary is synced and affirmed back from the standby to the primary. Okay. So this is a desired protection mode. If your standby goes down or your standby is not applying the redo, it goes to protection level resynchronization. So any monitoring queries you run should also look at protection level in your vDollar database view at the primary.